Well, Tony, it's we're here in Virginia at the show, and man, what a trip coming up here, wasn't it?
It was a beautiful drive, great weather. It's now in the 50s, short sleeve weather for some of us.
Yesterday wasn't so good though, right?
Yesterday started at about freezing. Growing up in the north, it was okay. I know some southerners had trouble.
And what about the 2 days it took to get here? What about that driving? That was crazy, wasn't it?
That was 2 long days of driving.
Yeah.
And what we discovered is the further north you go, the narrower the roads get.
Yeah, with no shoulder.
Yeah. Well, they don't need a shoulder.
There was more 18-wheelers on the road than there were cars.
In Virginia, that was amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
Part of the road.
Absolutely amazing. But we're here, guys. We made it safe and sound, and we're here at the show today, yesterday and today.
Yep.
Today's
Homesteaders
the last
of
day.
America.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Homesteaders of America.
Yep.
Yeah.
In what's the name of this town?
Front Royal. I keep calling it Fort Royal. I tell you, to me that makes more sense. But it's front.
Everything around here is named after a battle.
I know.
So it should be a
That's why it
fort.
doesn't make sense. But it is Front Royal, and it's a beautiful place. I've never seen so much green in all my life. It looks like you can drop a seed in the ground, something will grow.
Yeah, but not vertically. It has everything here is you go uphill both ways.
Yeah, you better be in good shape. You know, like me, I live on a flat farm, and I'm not a Virginia boy. I've already decided that. You know, one thing I noticed, though, you can tell the ones that belong here and the ones that don't by the way they dress. You know, they're walking around today with short sleeve shirts on, and some of them with shorts. And us from Texas, you look like you belong up here, actually.
Well, I grew up in the Midwest, so I understand cold.
Yeah. But my wife's here, and she's kind of in the background right now, and we really are enjoying the show. If you're in the Virginia area, we'd like you to stop on by. And if this doesn't get posted before that, well, we just wanted you to know what we're doing. Right now, we're selling BVACs, and we're selling our chicken doors, and the people up here are very friendly, and just really no issues at all. I just really enjoy this area.
And there's supposed to be, I don't know, a few thousand people here, and you can tell they're starting to get ready for, they're having presentations all day long about, you name it, with Homestead.
Yeah.
And it's good.
And so a lot of people don't understand about homesteading versus survival things versus like Mother Earth type shows. And so why don't you explain, you explain it better than I do, so maybe you can explain the differences between the three.
I think homesteaders are more orientated towards, they're concerned about so many chemicals in their foods. And process this and that and everything. So if you raise your own sheep or goats or cows, chickens, you know what they're eating, you know what's going into that conveyor.
That makes sense.
I think they're more concerned about being independent of all of the chemicals and having some self-sufficiency.
And so the survival stuff is more of Band-Aids and medical stuff and being stocked up in case something really terrible were to happen, right?
Like some of the cities where you get mugged.
And the other type
of TV show. You're plugged in the city. All you have on is just a pair of shorts and maybe shoes, and you got to ride 24 hours.
Yeah, depending on which part of the country you're at, you think that survival is lock and load and be the first one to shoot, but it's really more than that. It looks like that the show is about to begin, and people are walking through. And so we probably ought to wrap this up. And Tony, you got any last words to say?
Enjoy the time we have. It'll always be good.
Well, God bless you, and we hope to give you a wrap up of the show at the end. Thank you.
God bless.
Well, Tony, we're back from the show, and
we survived the traffic.
Man, was it bad. I'm telling you what, if it hadn't been for the view of Virginia and Tennessee and some of the other states.
It was almost like a magic line when we crossed the Red River coming back into Texas. We went from beautiful lush green to God turned off the faucet. And I know we live in a desert that's only interrupted by floods.
Yeah, this has been a bad year for Texas. We've got brown, yellow, and sort of kind of almost black. You know, for our fields, and there are a few green ones, but man, they're far and few between right now.
We're behind for the year. God will give us what we need.
He has, and I think the stock tanks are getting kind of drying up for the cattle as well.
Yes.
I got a stock tank that they tell me hadn't been dry in over 100 years, and it's still got water in it, but it don't have a lot.
The last time mine was going dry was 2011, and we are just about at that point.
Yeah, we're getting close. Oh, I remember that. You had to take all the catfish out of your stock tank.
Well, actually, my neighbor's was even lower, so we took from his, put them in mine, and I was running my well to keep mine from going dry, and ended up having trouble with the well.
Now, was that before you were feeding donuts to your catfish, or after?
Well, I used to feed back then. I haven't fed in a long time. They got to just make it on their own.
My grandkids got a big kick out of that when they went over to your place and you threw all them donuts.
Man.
Remember that?
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was.
And Samuel was a baby. Okay.
Oh, Samuel was a baby, and I think you said, yeah, let's use donut for bait or something. It was funny. Yeah.
Well, they didn't know what worms were.
Yeah. You and I've had a lot of good times over the years.
Yeah.
We've been doing business together for almost 15 years now.
Over 15.
Yeah, over 15
years.
A long time. And I guess what we come together today is to kind of do an overview of a show that we just came from.
And to cover some of the details, keep in mind we're in Central Texas. That show was up in
Virginia.
What was the town?
Front Royal.
I kept calling it Fort.
Fort Royal, yeah. I did too. I did too.
So it's just outside of Washington, D.C. area.
Yeah.
Beautiful countryside. Beautiful. But you could buy, only 10 acres. That's a real bargain because you get 15 because the other half are vertical.
That's right.
And we found a Buc-ee's way out there that they had actually, I think, plow off the top of a mountain to have enough land.
Yeah, only Buc-ee's could afford to do that. Yeah, boy, did they ever have a Buc-ee's up there. But I think the only thing that's ruining the land up there is what one of the persons, now this, I'm quoting somebody, so don't get mad at me, but one of the persons who is from Virginia said that the politicians have discovered their area and are destroying their land. So
moving in by the boatloads.
So it is a beautiful area, and I want to thank all of you guys from Virginia, if you're watching this, that you have one of the most beautiful states I think I'd seen in a long time, and I was really grateful to have the opportunity to get up there and talk to some of you guys and meet you and understand that we have a lot of like interests, not only political but religious. Our beliefs religiously are very similar, if not exactly the same, and our concerns about the school and our children. We have a lot in common with Virginia.
But there's some oddities. For instance, there was a fire hydrant out front, and it had kind of a fishing pole attached to it.
Yeah.
And I'd explained that that's there for the snow plow. When the snow gets deeper than 2 or 3 feet, and you can't find the fire hydrant.
Well, see, you know that because you lived in Chicago as a child.
I lived outside Chicago. Yep.
I've lived in a drought-ridden area my whole life, so I wouldn't know about those things.
The Ohio River is the line for the Arctic Circle. North of that, just what it is.
Yeah, well said.
But the show we went to was called the Homesteaders of America Conference.
And it was really billed as one of the largest expos in the United States. Now, whether it is or not, I don't know, but it was certainly billed as one of the larger ones where you can learn a lot about homesteading.
And they had, 3, 4, 5, 6 different tents going continuously. And they had, probably 4 or 5 different presentations, and each one throughout the day.
Yeah, they had a lot of different stages. They really did, and each stage had a different theme.
Yep, and some were a little bigger, some a little smaller.
I think the stage that we were in front of, there's only one really presentation that I thought was really good.
Well, of course.
Well, it had to do with beekeeping.
Of course it did.
Yeah, it's it sounds like I'm prejudiced, so maybe I'm a little bit, because we do sell bee vacuums, but I did listen to all the other presentations, and I got to admit, man, those other presentations, I'm not sure I would have driven across the state to go listen to those. Some
of them were, there's a couple of them I could think of that were 25% homesteading and 75% revival. Which I'm not complaining.
Yeah, I was okay with that. I mean, I kind of wanted to get up on stage and help him.
I did some amens.
Yeah, me too. I did as well.
But and I'm not putting that down. That is so needed, and that's the first thing you always start with.
I actually, now that you brought that up, I really like the one that where he was comparing fathers of today with our Father in heaven, and
Yeah.
how we should step up to be men and fathers. And I think he did something similar with the women as well. And I thought that was well said and needed to be said for some of these younger men who are trying to be a man, and some of them doing a darn good job of it, but others not so. And just I think sometimes the simple things need to be said.
Yeah. Well, men are men, women are women.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to start a fight. But when it comes to doing the physical work, we just have bigger muscles. That's why, okay, men shouldn't be boxing women. Said it.
Yeah, and we really shouldn't be telling a woman how to run the household or try to step into her business as well. I mean, you know, I got to admit, I married up. My wife's a lot smarter than I am, but I'm smart enough to realize that, and I give her her due. And when she tells me she's got the icky feeling of something, that women have that sixth sense, Tony, that we don't have.
Oh, we don't have. We're
And
clueless.
we're wise to pay attention to that.
That's why there's so many people out there saying, and that's why women live longer than men.
That's probably true. We just kind of charge into stuff, and next thing you know it, we're in the hospital.
But let's talk about the show.
Yeah,
So
we should be. Yeah.
overall, it was a good experience. I would compare it actually, honestly, in size to maybe like the Missouri show. So, you know, if you're somewhere in Louisiana and you want to go to one of these conferences, don't just go to the biggest one across the country, because it gets expensive with travel and driving or flying or hotels, etc. We went to last month to Missouri. For that month before that, we went to Oklahoma. And Oklahoma was a little bit smaller, but both of them, I would compare all three to having pretty comparable presentations. And frankly, and this is the hard part, a lot of the presentations were kind of fundamental level. Like the beekeeping guy, he was talking to either brand new beekeepers or maybe first year beekeepers or people about to get started, and a lot of the beginner topics which need to be covered.
But that's the people that go to these things because they are wanting to know what products do I need, which ones are best, where do I start, and so that is these conferences and these expos. They really are for the beginners who are just starting out, and they come to, you know, you and I have started coming to these things, and that's how we kind of started, is learning from people who had been doing this for a long period of time. So that is their audience.
Yeah. If you've been homesteading for 5 or 10 years, and I could blindfold you, you could milk the goats.
You're good. Yeah.
You might go there and teach, actually.
Yeah. And they did have a teaching of goat milk and sheep milk. I thought that was really interesting.
That was actually to talk about the goat milk soap.
And then they had a sheep where they did sheep milk before that. And
okay, I didn't remember that one.
She's the one that knew what a fat-tailed sheep was.
Yep.
And kudos to her. I forgot your name, but if you're listening, kudos to you, because not too many people know what a fat-tailed sheep is. That's mostly in Mongolia. And so I tell people about Mongolia, and they say, "Where's that?" So they think it's in Arkansas, but it's actually between Russia and China. But I digress, so let's get back onto the topic.
Another thing on, in terms of number of vendors, there were, I don't know if you put a number on it, 50 to 100 different vendors?
There were 50, well, they weren't different. There was a lot of them were doing this. Total number of vendors was probably about 50 to 100, but many of those vendors were doing the same exact thing. It was in my opinion, Tony, it was a poorly laid out expo for vendors.
Yeah, well, it was a fairgrounds, and they stuck vendors where they had floor space.
Yeah, and they put vendors where they shouldn't have been too. But if you're a vendor and you're watching this, I would not suggest you to go to this show unless it's in your backyard. We went all the way from Texas. It's 1,600 miles to get up there. 2 days up, 2 days back. We took our life in our hands with the traffic. Thank God nothing happened. But I would not go back because of just the way the show was. It was not vendor friendly. The internet didn't work, so that to charge things. we were in a spot that was just really got no traffic whatsoever, and they would not tell us where we were at, where we were going to be at even.
Yeah.
If you remember that.
We're in a different world.
Yeah.
We had called and asked, okay, where's our booth? So we have an idea of, are we on an end or in the middle or in a crowd, or how, can we do something with our booth?
Because it matters. It matters how we do the booth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they said, well, for security reasons, we can't tell you. That didn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, and it still doesn't make any sense. So anyway, if there's a show that's near you, I would save the money from going all the way across the country and just do one that's near you, if that's what you want to do. If you're a participant and you just want to go learn about things, all of these shows are good. This one had some fairly decent speakers. Of course, they had some that were not so decent, but all of these places have that. And so as far as speakers go, it was really on par with all the other shows. But if
another thing within the vendors, usually I like to go and find some innovative new, whether it's tools, approaches, methods, etc.
I didn't see any of that.
I walked through the booths a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was anything there that. Now, keep in mind, we did do the Missouri show, but
where were we?
I think we were talking about the vendor spaces, and
yes,
really,
we were.
I mean, a lot of the vendors were really nice people. Don't take me wrong that way, but in terms of, I guess if I was a beginner homesteader, and I didn't have 30 acres to fight regularly, some of those tools and things might have been handy.
Yeah.
I guess maybe we're just too experienced at this to really appreciate what the beginners. And a lot of things were kind of an Amish made, and you've got your honeys and your jams.
Well, see, that goes back to if it's local. Now, if you live near that area, man, this would have been great for you because you wouldn't have been out a whole lot of money, and you could have just seen it and gone home, and it wouldn't have cost you a whole bunch. But and if you're just going on vacation, the Shenandoah Valley, which is where this was at, is unbelievably beautiful. And it's got a lot of history there with the Civil War and the beginnings of our country, and so there's a lot of stuff to do. So if you want to take a vacation and you're not just focused on this show as your central theme, this is just one of many things, and this would be a good show for you if you're going to be there anyway. But I would not suggest driving across the country for this show if this is what you're mainly coming for. You can do just as well by some of these shows that are in your local area.
Yep. And we're finding there are homestead shows in practically every state across the country. It is absolutely a growing trend. And homesteading is, it was kind of funny because we had a few people who were survivalists, and there was one guy, I think you were reading something, like a book of how to survive a bear attack. I don't know. So the survival's okay, bear attack's great. Homesteading really is getting away from government foods, not government foods, but all the processed chemicals that you can't pronounce, and making your own food. If you go back 150 years ago, people didn't shop at Walmart and the grocery store. 90% of what they consumed was grown on the homestead. And this homestead movement is really focused around that, whether it's gardening, goats, chickens.
Yes, it's more like modern homesteading.
Yeah.
When you can't compare it to 100 years ago. We didn't have a car or cell phones or computers, or you had maybe a bicycle and a buggy and a horse.
Horse and a buggy, probably.
Horse and a buggy, maybe. But now the modern homesteader is basically trying to supplement their way of life with some healthy choices, and raising the right cattle, eating unprocessed meat, fresh from your field to your freezer, and then growing vegetables like you alluded to without all the fertilizers, or if you have to use bug sprays and stuff, you can make your own, which is a very safe way to do it. That's what modern homesteading really is nowadays.
The one thing I just realized was missing from all the homestead shows we've gone to.
What's that?
And it was touched on in one of the presentations we saw that was in front of us.
Yeah.
Was homesteading for homeschoolers. So many parents are afraid to homeschool their kids
Yes.
Because it is a big commitment.
Yes.
But compared to what we're seeing in public schools anymore, the homeschooling kids done well is the greatest gift you can ever give your children, other than faith.
Well, homeschooling, because of COVID, I think we talked about this on the way back. COVID has really exploded homeschooling, and for a good reason, because during COVID kids weren't learning anything. They got about 2 years behind in school, and those kids that were put into homeschool and pulled out of the school system during that period not only did well, but they thrived and they exceeded anything that the teachers would have taught them. And so now that the public schools are open again, the homeschoolers are still growing, and they're growing because parents all across this nation are seeing that their kids can get a better education, get family values that they cannot get in school, and they can be taught right and wrong from their parents and not from someone that can't even decide whether you're a man or a girl. And I don't mean to say that to be controversial, but it is the world we live in. The people who are in control of our kids in that school can't even decide which bathroom you should use. I understand
or
litter boxes out there. It's gotten so stupid that it's not school anymore, from what I've been told. Now, I got to admit, I'm old. I got grandkids. I don't have any of my own kids in school, but my daughter tried to put her kids back in public school because she's been homeschooling for a while, and they were so dumbed down that it was just unbelievable. So she pulled them back out, and she's homeschooling again. And I have a 15-year-old that's taking college courses, and it's not because he's the brightest. My grandson, yes.
Yeah.
He's not the brightest kid in the world. It's just that the homeschooling has got him that far ahead. So I'm a big advocate of homeschooling. I think Tony is as well. But I'm a big advocate for public school if they do it right.
Well, the way it was done 60 years ago.
But unfortunately, it's not done right. And so, but you're right that this particular show did have something about homeschooling, and
but there were no booths that heard different programs.
Yeah, there was no booths. There was nothing there to back up that, and so.
Other than we saw a ton of well-behaved kids.
Well, boy, did we ever. I don't know what they do in Virginia, but you guys in Virginia, whatever you're doing really good with your children.
I could line up 10 kids. If you tell me 5 are homeschooled, 5 are public schooled, in about 2 minutes I can tell you which are which.
Yeah. All the kids that I met at this conference were really sharp. They were mature for their age, and they weren't dressing or doing stupid things. They were they really had their head on
Well,
straight.
some of them were just being kids.
Well, yeah, you would expect that.
Some of the kids were really stressing out our doors, and it was helping our sales because people are seeing that the door can handle the abuse.
That's right. That's right, and it did.
So,
well, we're a little long in the tooth, and I want to thank you guys for watching this. We haven't put one on in a while, and Tony and I have discussed about doing this a little bit more often, and so we probably will try to do it more often than what we've done it.
Especially now that it's cooling off.
Now that it's cooling off, you know. But I can tell you one thing, when you go up north, you can tell who belongs up north and who doesn't belong up north by the shirts they're wearing. We got up there and it was like 40 degrees, and people were up there with shorts and tank tops. I could not believe it. But kudos to you tough guys, and thank you for watching, and God bless you.
Amen.